Hi and welcome everyone. Lisa here for Whimsy Stamps. Thanks for taking the time to join me. So today I have a fun card I'm sharing with you plus a really cool technique. And I want to talk a little bit about the products first and then I'm going to show you some inspiration and then we'll get right into this. So I'm using the Slimline Scalloped Pocket Die. I'm using the Slimline St. Patrick's Day paper pack, St. Patrick's Gold stamp set, and the Array of Rainbows die set. Now, my inspiration from this actually comes from Andrea. She's my crafty friend and design team sister. And she created this amazing card, and I saw it on Instagram, and I had to hop over to the blog and check it out because I wanted to know how she did those gold coins. So I've had this idea for my card in my head ever since I got the pocket die and the slimline paper. But I thought about what would be the best way to come up with some coins. So I was just going to buy some chocolate coins that you can get at this time of year and use those. But then I saw her coins and I was like, oh my gosh, how did she do that? So like I said, I hyped over to the blog to check it out. She uses gold foil paper, stamps the image from the St. Patrick's gold stamp set onto the gold foil, die cut gold foil paper, and then just uses clear embossing powder and heat sets that onto that gold foil paper. I would recommend that if you want to make a card like this or try that coin effect, that you try hers out if you have gold foil paper. My technique is a little bit more involved. So I would use it as a last resort, maybe, because it is involved. But I do love the way that these coins turn out. What I have here are some of the products I'm going to be using. I'm using some die cut heavy cardstock because we're laying down a lot of layers of embossing powder on these die cut pieces. We're going to be using embossing ink and some gold embossing powder for this. And of course, we're going to need a heat gun too. You're going to take your embossing ink pad straight to your die cut circles. And you want to make sure you have the whole thing covered with ink. And then you're going to cover them with embossing powder. And then you're going to come in with a preheated heat gun and heat set them. You're going to repeat these steps of inking, adding embossing powder, and heat setting at least 3 times. I recommend 4 for you to get the best results. So once you've gone in and you've done these steps 3 to 4 times where you're layering the embossing powder, one layer on top of the other, you're going to do it one more time. Only this time, we're going to go ahead and prep our stamp. Now, a lot of times you're going to hear people say, don't smush your ink pad down into your stamp. And I am 100% with that, except for this time. This time, we're going to take our embossing ink and we are going to smush the ink pad down into the stamp. You want to ink this stamp up and go ahead, smush it down into there. That's what you want because we're priming this stamp for this technique. Once you have your ink, your stamp primed and ready to go, just set it right to the side because you have to work kind of quick at this point. We've added more embossing ink to our die cut piece. We have added embossing powder, as you can see here. We have our stamp sitting here. We're going to come in with our preheated heat gun. Now you need to remember you have 3 or 4 layers of embossing powder underneath this that you've already heat set. So you need to take the time to heat all those layers up again. Once you have them heated up, you're going to grab your stamp and go ahead and push it down into that embossing powder. Now you want to let this cool completely. Make sure that it's cooled so you don't burn your hands. So I want to show you that it doesn't hurt your stamp. So you saw me just remove the stamp from the embossing powder. And I inked it up with my VersaFine Clair Twilight ink. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp it so that you guys can see the stamp is perfectly fine. Now, I did this with all 3 of the stamps in this stamp set, and I had no problems whatsoever. I've actually done this technique before, and I've never had any issues with my stamps being messed up from it. It's a great way to seal your envelopes if you don't have like the seal wax and all of that stuff. Okay, so let's set that aside for now and let's focus on putting this card together. So I have my Slimline Scallop pocket die here and a piece of the Slimline paper. Now, the Slimline paper obviously is not wide enough to cut out the tabs. So just line the paper up with the embossed lines on the die and then secure it in place with some tape and run it through your die cut machine. I use 65-pound white cardstock here to create a pocket because I knew I was going to be adding this heavy pattern paper to it, so we were good to go. Liquid adhesive to the front of the pocket, add the pattern paper over it, fold your tabs, give it a good press down, add some double-sided adhesive to those tabs, and then just set that to the side for a second. Liquid adhesive to the top part of your pattern paper, go ahead and add that centered up on your card base. Now my card base is 4 inches wide by 8.5 inches long. If you want to do a 3.5-inch card, you can, but you just won't have the white frame around it. Go ahead, remove the release paper from the back of the double-sided tape and add the pocket to your card base, set it to the side. Rainbows. Now I did all this die cutting off screen. And one tip I want to give you real quick is you notice how I have the Post-it tape on there? Well, after I die cut these and before I remove them from the die cut plate, I take a piece of Post-it tape and lay down across the top, and it secures them in place because these rays need to lay exactly as they're cut or they won't lay correctly. What we're going to do is we took a piece of white scrap cardstock and we used a negative after cutting those rays out. And then we just cut that out so we would have a white piece of cardstock to build our rainbow on. I'm starting from the last rainbow and working my way back to the first one. I laid down all 5 rays on the green, and that's the last ray. And then as I work my way back through, I remove 1 ray each time. And it's giving me some dimension with this rainbow, and it's absolutely amazing. So for the very last ray that I put down, which is the red one, I only used 1 ray from that bunch. I knew I wanted to do this gold coin at the end of my rainbow. And I knew I wanted it to be the big gold coin because I wanted it to cover up the bottom part of this rainbow. And I also went ahead and die cut some clouds from that Array of Rainbows die set because I knew I was going to use a cloud at the very top of the rainbow so that it doesn't look like the rainbow just stops. Double-sided adhesive to the back of my gold coin, and I just trimmed a little corner of my rainbow off that was showing. Now, I have some sticky that's down below the rainbow, and I don't want that because if I leave it, it's going to catch inside the pocket, and the recipient's not going to be able to pull it out. Just put some anti-static powder, baby powder, whatever you have available over that tape, and it'll take the stickiness away. We slid that down into our pocket. We know we're good to go. It's going to fit. So we're going to go ahead and stamp our interactive message pull here. I'm using the Halloween postage stamp set. It has some great interactive messages on it. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm putting a large cloud at the very top of my rainbow. I used liquid adhesive to do that. I'm going to use some little foam squares on the back of the smaller cloud and put it on top of the larger one so that it's at the very top of my card and the recipient sees pull here and they know to go ahead and pull. Next, I'm going to add some more mounting foam to a third cloud here, a larger one, and I'm going to add that to my rainbow as well. So this is why I wanted to build on a solid piece of white cardstock. The shape of my rainbow, it gives it some sturdiness, so when the recipient's pulling on that, you won't have any issues with it. Now, I played around with sentiments with this one. I knew what I wanted it to say. I don't know why I was fighting myself on this sentiment, but I did for a hot second. I fought myself hard on stamping this sentiment out. In the end, I'm glad I went ahead and did it. It only took me like 5 minutes, and it reads, "You are the pot of gold at the end of my rainbow." Here, I'm adding some dye ink around the edges of this die cut piece. So this piece is actually from the Slimline Scallop pocket die. And I thought, you know what, this will be really cool. I can die cut this piece, I can stamp my sentiment on it and add it to the top of my card. And it'll go with the pattern paper. But when I laid it on the pattern paper, I knew immediately that I needed to come in and do the spotlight technique where you add ink to the edges and dark. The edges are really dark, and then you're going to lighten that ink up as you move towards the center to keep the center real light. And I knew this it was going to have to play out on this when I laid that paper down on that pattern paper to help it blend in with the pattern paper a little bit more. Just come in with Cottage Ivy, and these are Memento dye inks, and ink up, and then I came in with Tuxedo Black and then blended it back out with the Cottage Ivy. I'm going to use mounting foam squares on the back of the sentiment and then double-sided adhesive to the back of my last coin. Now, I want to make sure I don't have any adhesive up above that scalloped edge. If you do, it's going to catch on your coins or your clouds or rainbow, and it's going to stop you from being able to pull that out and put it back in. I did come in with a gold jelly roll pen and add some details to the stitching. I also stamped 3 little shamrocks and then with black ink, and then also went over those with the jelly roll pen. Now, if you'll take a look at that rainbow and you see the large coin, there's 2 small coins added to the back side of that larger coin using foam, square foam adhesives. That's going to wrap us up on this one. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. As always, the links are provided in the description box for you. And for more information on the products I used, you can head over to the Whimsy Stamps website. Until next time, take care.